Okay, so it says I'm live now. The lighting is probably a bit terrible, but that's okay for right now. I'm just doing this as a test of the live streaming on my phone right now. I'm using my laptop, but I'm going through a hotspot on my phone to make sure that when my wedding happens in about 3 weeks or so, that I'd be able to stream the wedding. And the camera looks like it's an okay quality camera. I might upgrade to the camera that I use normally for my videos, but this is just a test right now. But why not use this test to show off unboxing of the Wake the Dead box from Malifaux that I got delivered just the other day. If you don't know what the Wake the Dead box is, it is a Malifaux 3rd edition box for the Death Marshal faction. Just open it up right here. It basically has a lot of the old, I think it's Wave 4 or Wave 5, I forget which models from Malifaux 2nd edition repackaged together. You've got the jury, the Death Marshal recruiter, the jury, the Death Marshal recruiters, and the Domadores de Cadaveres, which I don't speak Spanish, so I might have just butchered that completely, but got some pretty interesting looking models from the backside of here. They usually show the renders of the models so that you get a preview of what you're basically getting. And now I will just open this up. Doesn't look like anyone's on right now, but that's okay. This is just for my own personal testing. Now, opening up the box, I got everything in this giant pile of sprues, which is my favorite way to get models. I usually like to get them next to each other, not piled on top of each other, but what can you do? If I look here, it looks like actually they took a bunch of the old sprues and cut them in certain ways to put them into the box. Here's the Death Marshal recruiters sprues. So this one is the flamey head one, I think. Oh, no, it's both of them. So from about here to here is the flaming head Death Marshal, and then from here and here is the normal looking Death Marshal. And the way I can tell is that you've got the flaming Death Marshal head here, you've got the casket, and then you've got the body and the legs and arms and other ligaments here. And then when you go down to this next section of the sprue, you can see here we've got another body right there. That's the unflamey head Death Marshal recruiter. And also this weird skeleton with flames coming off of it. I don't know precisely how it'll assemble, but it looks like it should be an interesting model to put together. And then on this side, we have the legs, a sword, and looks like more parts of the coffin that Death Marshal has, as well as the bottom of its trench coat, his trench coat right here, which should have 2 contact points holding it together. Like if I were to hold the sprue like this, you could see that right about here, it's touching a contact point. But that got snipped off, so it's kind of like being held on here by a little thin bit of plastic right there. Still cool. I love this model. This is one of my favorite Death Marshal models that they have, so I'm excited to put this one together. And then this one looks like it's the Domadores. It's similarly split up as the Death Marshal recruiter ones. So right here, you can see here that we've got the female one is from here to about here. You can tell because This right here is her skirt. This is what appears to be another layer of the skirt flaring up, and her hair and head are right here. Now these are very small pieces, especially for a head piece. So I'm going to have to be very careful when I use the plastic glue. Otherwise, I might melt it to the point where it's unusable and I would cry. Over here for the male one, though, we've got just a single body, a leg, a hat with candles sticking on it, which honestly, the candles came out pretty well on top of there. You can see these little tiny spikes right there. It's probably hard to see on the camera, but that's what I'll be focusing on when I paint that, actually, is those candles, because they're going to be a little bit difficult to paint, because I'll paint the hat like a brown or a black color, a darker color, but I'd want the candles to be a little bit brighter. And I don't have this most delicate touch when it comes to painting, but I'll probably end up having to do that multiple times, because if I paint a light color on the candles, I'm going to accidentally get that paint on the dark color of the hat. That happens from time to time, but usually I'm not an expert painter. I'm not going for any painting rewards or anything like that. So I'm gonna live with it however it turns out. This good one. I hear they're really good at healing and helping out death marshals. I think I've got the cards here for the rules, and I can go over that. That came with the box as well. And then the last one is we've got the jury, and I think she only has herself and a servant who, or is it's a prisoner, because they've got a lock on the chest here. You can probably see a little tiny lock right there on the guy's chest, and he has on his back a giant book or tome that the jury uses, and she's not as great of a model as the other 4 models in the box as far as like assembling goes. I think as far as how it looks on the field, I think I like the other 4 better, because you've got the more dynamically posed Domadores, and then you have the death marshals, who are more dynamically posed, but they're also much more like in a badass stance. So you have like them holding their coffin. They're holding a coffin that has, if you look here, you have one holding a coffin where a zombie is trying to get out, or a person's trying to get out, and this one here has his foot on the throat of a zombie that's currently burning. And also the burning head is a lot more dynamic, in my opinion. And then when you look here at the jury, the problem I have here is that she's basically just in a more dominant pose on this guy's back, and it doesn't really tell me what she does on the field. And I think she basically makes it so that you can attack and damage models that have been buried by the death marshals, but it's a model. I'm gonna assemble her. Maybe I won't use her. Maybe I'll just have her on a shelf somewhere. But yeah, that's her sprue. And as always with these boxes, you always get the bases. In this case, what we've got here is got 2 30 mil bases. They're pretty small. They're meant for the Domadores. And then we've got the 40 mils, and we get 3 of those. And that's for the Death Marshal recruiters and the jury. And just for a size comparison, yeah, that's about how big they are comparatively. a single 30 mil can basically fit into the 40 mil base and at the lip. These bases aren't as high quality as I'm used to getting from Weird. In fact, I have a base right here that's from Weird back in the day. I had a model painted on here, but then I took it off. But it's harder to see because it's black here. But there's this inner ring here that adds an extra level of support. I think it might be meant for like metal models, maybe, but probably not. But I used to use, especially with the Death Marshal models I have from M2e, I would put a washer in this section to keep it weighted down because these models are very top heavy, even though they're plastic. So they'll fall over pretty easily if they're not weighted down. So having these washers in here is very helpful. But looking at it, the base is a little bit shorter than the old ones and doesn't have enough of an empty space beneath here for a washer to fit in. So maybe I would have to put like a dime or something in here to actually weigh down the Domadores if I want. Same thing with here, except this is a little bit more, there's a little bit more depth here. It's hard to tell in the video, but I could probably put a quarter or something there to weigh it down. Saves money on the more money on that than on the washers. The washers can cost a pretty penny. And then we get the cards. And these are different from the old cards, which I don't think I have the old cards lying around anymore. I used to, though. Here we go. I do have them. So they're a tarot card size card. All the rules in the Malifaux M3e app. If you have that, the Crew Builder app, that's what I like about Malifaux is they actually give out the rules for free, so you don't have to go and track down these cards. If you have a printer yourself, you can print these cards off, and I actually do that, and I make my printouts of the cards a lot bigger than they should be, which allows me basically to, if I can find the right one, here we go. It allows me to print them off a little bit bigger than this. So as you can see, this is bigger print. I can actually read this a lot better than I can read this. And for some people that might be useful. All you have to do is go to the Malifaux website, go to resources, select the cards from Dropbox, and print them as a PDF. And you can print them so that they are best fit and print 3 cards to a page. So it would actually be like the 3 cards front and back, so 6 in total. And then when you print them off, you can turn them into like a little pamphlet like this and fold them over, which is what I did. I basically just folded the paper over, and then if I want, and then I'll like cut them or something and be able to, like this. I'd be able to fold them over and then tape them shut. Now, I could go over the cards a little bit. You know what? I have the cards. Like this is what you get. You get the cards, you get the sprues, and you get the bases. And that's it. Hi, Isaac. Nice to see you. How's the video coming along? I want to check to make sure that the quality coming from my phone is good and that you guys can actually hear me. Oh, thanks. That's good because I think the video quality will be, I'm going to try this outside later, see how that works, because this is going to be used for my wedding in about a couple weeks. I'm going to send out a link to people to watch the stream if they want. But it's basically going to be running through my phone on hotspot, which isn't the best. I can try either this camera that's on my laptop, or I can try this camera here, which is an HD 720 camera. So we'll see if that works later on. And just sort of to round out the experience of unboxing this, I've got the jury card here, and her stats are pretty, for a henchman, not the greatest. She's got a 5 willpower. She's size 2, which is all right, but her health is only 8. And if you look at all of her defensive triggers, her defensive trigger is if you have a mask, when resolving, that if this model suffered damage, the attacking model suffers the same amount of damage, which is basically, you hurt it, it hurts you, as long as it has a mask in the defense duel. Other than that, there's no way for it to mitigate damage unless it heals someone, in which case it will heal 2 damage if it kills a model. It can also, at the start of its activation, cause all buried enemy models to suffer 2 damage, which is actually a pretty good thing if you're having a Death Marshal crew with a lot buried in it. Or if you're going up against an enemy who buries their models a lot, like Terra. Also, it has she has an ability called By the Book. Any models within 6 that cheat fate in a duel lose all their suits in the final duel total, which is pretty good. Not the greatest, because it means that she needs to be within the 6 inches of anything that can kill her. And then we've got Guild Authority. Enemy models within 5 inches must discard a card to take the concentrate action. Honestly, I don't see these 2 abilities at the top here doing much. You have to be within 6 or 5 inches to get these abilities off. You're basically putting yourself in danger. If we look at the back of the card, we've got Sharp Wit. It's a melee attack, and it gives the target slow. It's decent. You can also drop a scheme marker into base contact with the model if you hit, which is good for some strategies. Model must have to discard a card if you have a crow in it. Oh, and then this model gets to draw a card and then discard a card. So it's good card cycling if you can do it. Ancient Words. This looks like the actual ability that you'd be using with this model. It's an 8-inch spell, which is not great range. I mean, this model really wants to get up close, but it's not going to survive up close in a lot of cases. So what we're going to get is we've got a 2-4-5 damage spread, which is pretty great. Yeah, it's two for the lowest end damage, but for the moderate and the severe, that's pretty high. Then you have the ram trigger is Into the Dust. So undead model, you kill the target unless it discards a card or a soulstone, which is decent ability. You can delete models or force your opponent to start discarding their resources. Glimpse the Void. Target must pass a 14 willpower duel, or it's buried. If the target is buried by this trigger at the start of its activation, unbury it within 1 inch of an enemy model. I want to have to read again. Okay, so basically you're going to be taking a model out of the game for just a turn, and it'll be back by its next turn. So you don't really have the control to bring it out. You can't read that. You might be able to read it a little bit. It's weird because on my end, I can see the card pretty well from here. The last thing on this card is... Isaac, I don't believe you. You have played 40K. You own the books. You're not illiterate. The other thing on this is, like, they like the Death Marshal cards to give out Adversary, which, as a rule, I'm still getting used to it because it's new. It's like, it basically, I think it gives you a lot of bonuses for attacking models. Looking it up on the app here. I'm basically testing out if I can also use the phone for surfing the web, just to make sure that if there's a high network traffic, that this stream doesn't crash. Conditions, Adversary. Models with the keyword in Adversary condition receive a plus flip to attack actions targeting this model. Okay, so you get a plus flip. That's cool. And it disappears at the end phase. Okay. That's a pretty good one. So good at giving out a little bit of Adversary here. Again, 8 inches, not the best. But she also has an Obey, which has a built-in mask for the mask target numbers of, so a 6 to a 14, so you need an 8 to get it off. It's your standard Obey. You can't target a master, but you can target enemy models with it. Honestly, I think she's going to be more of an Obey piece than a damage dealer. And then she has the bonus action of False Accusation, which is something that the Exorcists also have, where you make an enemy, you turn an enemy into an undead model, which can really screw over your opponents. I'll quickly go over these last 2 models here. All in all, Jury, definitely a situational pick for Death Marshal crew. The Domadores are a model that I really like. I like the dead motif. In fact, in the lore, they're not Mexican, they're actually Spanish, and they've the Spain in the lore is essentially run by necromancers, which is kind of an interesting idea. But also, Catalonia is separate from Spain, I think, because we have there are outcast models, which I don't own, called the Catalan Brawler and Catalan Rifleman, I believe, and they're pretty interesting in my opinion. Like, it's interesting that that's something that happened in this world in the alternative history. But then again, there's a lot of other stuff in Malifaux's alternative history that is kind of weird for me. Like, for instance, there was never an American Civil War. Yeah. But the Domadore de Cadaveres, it's a minion. You can take 2 of them. They're living, but they have an ability here that enemy living models within 5 inches are treated as undead, which is actually really good synergy with the normal Death Marshal cards, which if you start next to an undead model, you can gain fast. So they're really good for helping you do that when a model isn't undead, such as a Reser Master like McMorning, or a model like the Nurses who are not undead, they're living. Hard to wound, good to have. It's a 7-cost model, and it has 7 health, which I guess puts it on par with how the Jury's done, because the Jury is 8 and has 8 health. But instead of having a defensive trigger, they have hard to wound, which just makes it more difficult to hurt it. And she also has Unnatural Vigor too, which allows her to heal. I wonder now if that's an ability that all Death Marshals have. Yes, all Death Marshals have Unnatural Vigor. Okay. And then Entropy. Enemy models that start their activation within 3 suffer 1. That's decent. I'm not sure if I'd want these in melee, but they're going to get close enough, probably. And now we have their back of the card. First action is Decay. They can give out the injured condition, and they do blast damage of 2/2/3. And it's an 8-inch spell, so that's pretty decent. Oh, and it has a built-in trigger here. After resolving, friendly living models that would be damaged by this action instead heal 2. Awesome. They also have a severe injury trigger, which just makes the injured one go up to a maximum of injured 2. I believe that's 3 in total, because 2 from the trigger, and actually it would only be 2 because there's no way to give it an extra crow. Yeah, that's a decent attack. Then we have decent attack. Then we have Command Corpse. Oh, so Decay is the reason why they people always say they're really good at healing, because they have that built-in trigger to always heal people. Okay, that makes sense. Then they have Command Corpse. It just needs a 7 to go off, and it's 12 inches. Non-leader undead only. Target takes, so this is an obey that gives another either enemy or ally the ability to take an action. And if you get a ram on it, you can heal the target to health. That's another way of spreading out the heal here, so it's pretty good. That one I think I like that one a lot, especially given that if a model's within 5 inches, it's always counted as undead, or at least if it's a enemy model within 5 inches, it's always count as undead. And then we get Vile Reclamation, which is their bonus action. Target gains injured 1, and this model heals 1. Oh, that's decent. Let's see here. Draw Essence. It's a 3-inch pulse. Suffers 1 damage. Okay, so I have to do damage to Domadores. And anyone within range has to do a 12 defense duel or suffer 2 damage. Oh, and this model heals 1 damage for each damage that it puts out, and there's no cap to that. So if it's surrounded, it can definitely heal up a lot faster. So definitely a must-take for a Death Marshal crew. I think I agree with what a lot of people say online about the Domadores, is that you might as well just have 1 or 2 in your crew to keep your models alive. And here's the Death Marshal Recruiter. And as I said before, the Death Marshal Recruiters come in 2 variations. You've got the guy with a flaming head and the guy without one. It doesn't change anything about how they actually work on the field. They're both identical as far as abilities go. So Hard to Wound, Unnatural Vigor, Grim Recruit. Now this is a good one. After another friendly model within 5 inches is killed, this model may discard a card. If it does so, the killed model is instead replaced with a Death Marshal Recruiter. With a Death Marshal. Then the new model heals 2. So if you have a Death Marshal next to this guy and it dies, I think that's true. Double checking here. Oh no, Death Marshals are undead. They're considered undead. You can't do that. Okay. So if you have an Exorcist, though, if that Exorcist dies, you can bring it back as a Death Marshal, an undead Death Marshal. Beyond Time. Beyond Time is my favorite ability that this has. It allows it to target buried models with actions, ignoring range and line of sight. So basically, it can attack anyone that gets put into a Death Marshal's Pine Box, or anyone that the jury uses Glimpse of the Void on. It's definitely the best ability that I think it's the best ability that a Death Marshal crew can take in. And then we've got Final Repose. Models in this crew do not drop any markers when killed. Decent. It's especially good against summoners who need corpse markers to summon. 1 foot towards the grave. Friendly marshals that activate within 3 inches may push 2 inches towards a corpse marker or undead model in their line of sight. Decent, especially considering that they can summon Death Marshals right next to them. Back here. Peacebringer Blade. Target suffers 2, 3, 4 damage. Has critical strike, not built in. Decent attack. Nothing to write home about. Then we've got the Pine Box. Enemy only. Stat 3 versus size. Target gains Distracted 1 and is buried. When the target activates, it must attempt a TN13 willpower duel. If it passes, or if this model is killed or buried, unbury it into base contact with this model. It's basically the same as what the Death Marshals have normally. But it also has the trigger Rip and Tear, which you can take an attack action against the same model, and it receives a positive flip to the duel. So if you bury the model, you can attack it once it's been buried. You can also drain magic, which allows you to draw a card and discard a card and makes your opponent discard a card. And then we have the Peacebringer, which is just a 12-inch attack. It is slightly better than the Peacebringer Blade in that it is a 2-3-5 damage spread instead of a 2-3-4 damage spread. So if you're going to shoot something in that's buried, use the gun attack, not the blade, not the melee. And then it has Shrug Off, which is discard a card and 1 condition on this model. Very good, very good. All around, I think I'll take this. I'll take this model and this model every single time with a Death Marshal crew. I don't think there's any reason not to take those 2 models. This one, situational, but cool artwork, cool model. We'll see how it goes. Thank you for watching, Isaac. Thank you for stepping in. I'll take a look at the video. I hope the video quality is up to snuff. If it's not, maybe I'll delete it. I don't know. Hope anyone who's trying to get into Malifaux, who saw this, has a better understanding of what it's like to get started with Malifaux. And that's it, really. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.